Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dean's Lunchtime Chat. I'm Allison Werder, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Marketing and Communications here at Eisenberg and the Chief Marketing Officer. I'm going to go through a few brief logistical issues before I turn it over to Dean Massey to begin. First of all, this session is being recorded, so we can share it later on site in an email to attendees. So by being here, you agree to this recording. Thank you. Before I turn it over to the Dean, also, I wanted to just do a couple logistical things. First, this is a rather large webinar. So during this time, participants' cameras and microphones will be muted. We do invite you to ask questions, though. So if you have questions, you will see at the bottom of your screen the Q&A function. So I know some of you submitted questions in advance, and we've worked those into the dialogue today, and we'll get to those. But if you have questions as we're going, please feel free to insert them in the question spot below. And I and others will be monitoring this. So we will try and work in questions either as we talk or at the end of the conversation. So I know we have a great presentation today. We're going to talk about some things going on this semester, both from our faculty and staff. And also we have some wonderful students who are going to talk about some work they do with the consulting group. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dean Ann Massey to get us started today. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Well, welcome everyone. It's really nice to be back with you here for our spring 2022 lunchtime chat. We had been having a wonderful academic year, and we're enjoying obviously having the students back on campus, both in the fall and now here in the spring. And I will tell you that if you're not here in Amherst, it's a nice, bright, sunny day, and we're headed to spring break here in a couple of weeks. We've really been happy with regard to the response on campus on the part of students, faculty, and staff. Everything's been going really well with managing the pandemic, and we're very hopeful that things will continue in that vein post spring break. And I think, as everyone's seen, things are moving in a very positive direction. But more importantly for us here on campus, the students have brought back the life to Eisenberg, the life to the campus and the surrounding town of Amherst and the surrounding areas. So we couldn't be happier to have them here. Students have been actively engaged in their curricular and co-curricular activities. We've had lots of case competitions going on with great success. You'll hear about that in some of our newsletters that will be going out later this year, but we couldn't be more proud of them. I also want to just share something with everyone, a quick update. You may recall, if you joined us last spring with our lunchtime chats, we had an opportunity during one of them talking about faculty and faculty research. We had Dave Tyler from our sport management department joined us last spring, and Dave does research on sport rivalries and showed us a platform application that he uses in his research and data collection. Well, Dave shared with me this morning that he is going to be part of a documentary film. The filmmakers are going to be here on campus, I believe, today and tomorrow, filming Dave's work. And the documentary is about sport rivalries. And the first episode, apparently, of the series is on the big rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan. And so Dave is going to be participating, being interviewed and filmed and so on. So we're very proud of Dave, and we'll share more information as we get more information about the distribution of that documentary. But today, we're actually going to be trying to give everybody a quick update on a lot of things that have been going on from different perspectives, building off our earlier conversations. I know a lot of people are very interested in what does a job market look like for our students. And we've got Holly Lawrence here with us again today. Holly, as you may recall, is our Assistant Dean for our Office of Career Success. She's joined us last year in some of our lunchtime chats, talking about some of the investments that we've made in platforms, the iConnect platform, along with our Eisenberg digital assets to support our students and increase access. Holly, I've asked her to come in today and talk to us about how internships look, how job placements is looking, both for the class of 2021, last year's class, but also our current class. So she's got a lot of good things that she's going to share with us. We also have Susan Boyer joining us. Susan is our Director of Instructional Technologies. As you know, we made a big investment, particularly at the start of the pandemic, amping up the skills and competencies of all our faculty with regard to the use of digital technologies in the classroom and online. And so Susan, we've asked her to take on this important role as the director of our instructional technologies, and she's going to come and share with us today some of the innovations that we're making across the school and how faculty have become more savvy. And frankly, students have become more savvy over the past 3 years as well. And last but not least, I'm really, really pleased to bring some students, some leadership and students from our undergraduate consulting group. This group is one example, I think it's an exemplar example of many of the student clubs, organizations, and groups that provide opportunities, both curricular oriented, co-curricular activities. Some of these organizations are focused on particular industries. This one is kind of focused on the consulting industry and developing skills and competencies outside of the classroom for students that are interested in that space. And so the consulting group is going to talk about that. We, of course, as many of you know, we've got other clubs and organizations, some focused on particular industries, some focused on particular aspects of business life. For example, our Advancing Diversity in Business organization, our Women in Business organization, Smart Women Security. So we run the gamut. We've got, I think it's close to 35 different clubs and organizations that students are involved in. I'm very proud of them. So we asked the consulting group to come and join us today. And you may recall we've had some of them join us in different contexts earlier. As Allison said, you've submitted some questions. We'll try to get to those a little bit later. But again, if you have any questions as we go along, just put them in the Q&A and we'll try to address them. So now I'm going to bring Holly Lawrence on board. If Holly can join us, turn her camera on. Holly is absolutely fabulous as our assistant dean for our Office of Career Success, and all the folks, the career coaches, the student peers that work in that office, our business comm faculty. And it's just a phenomenal group working with our students, undergrad and grad. So anyway, I will stop. I'm going to turn it to Holly. Why don't you tell us how things are looking for the students and as far as jobs and internships go?
I'll be happy to, Ann. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yes, a big shout out to my colleagues in the Office of Career Success, our career coaches, and our business communication faculty, and the folks who are our employer engagement people, Director of Employer Engagement. We really could not do it without such a strong team. So I feel very fortunate to be a part of that team, and fortunate to be able to report some really good news about internships and jobs. I'd also like to talk a little bit about trends we're seeing in the entire recruiting process. So I'll get started. First, our 2021 data are in, and I can say with great pleasure that of students seeking full-time employment, 93% were employed within 6 months of graduation. We feel really good about that. We saw that the median salary for all students across all majors is up to $63,000 a year. Not bad, I'd say. We saw that students who are going on to graduate school increased with the class of 2021. That percentage went up from 11% to 15%. And that's in keeping with some national trends I'll talk a little bit more about. We have some excellent employer partners. For example, the big accounting firms, Deloitte, EY, KPMG, PwC, RSM, they're huge employers for us, mostly for our accounting majors, but also for our OIM majors, for consulting related opportunities in particular we're seeing. Other top employers include BNY Mellon, TJX, Raytheon, Oracle, Dell EMC, Epsilon, Fidelity, and Citibank. Our top industries that students are landing jobs in are accounting, internet and software, investment portfolio management, banking and financial services, retail, sports management, sports and leisure. So interestingly, we've seen our hospitality majors go into a variety of industries. Employers are recognizing the transferable skills that those majors have and are offering them positions in sales and other customer service areas. So A little bit about what we're seeing at a national level that relates to us as well. So according to a recent report from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, NACE is what we commonly call it, employers are planning to hire 26.6% more new grads from the class of 22 than they did from 21. That to me is just phenomenal. Furthermore, the largest group of respondents, so 48%, rate the overall job market for the class of 22 graduates as very good, and 14.1 rate it as excellent. This is compared again to last year when just 3.9% of respondents rated the overall job market for the class of 21 graduates as very good, and 0.5% deemed it excellent. So that's just a great thing to see as a national trend. And we'd say it's pretty consistent with our employers in Eisenberg. They're reaching out to get with our students. As I said, we are seeing students who are going on to grad school, though, a little bit more. We're attributing that to a lot of the specialized one-year master's programs that many colleges and universities have. We have a few here in Eisenberg ourselves. Our students are staying with us in Eisenberg. Some are going to Cornell, University of Rochester, Duke, and Villanova, to name a few. And as I mentioned, this trend to head to grad school is consistent nationwide, and we see it as interesting. And it's those specialized master's programs, like I said, for example, students want to do a deep dive in an area like analytics. So we have an MSBA. We also have an MSA that we've had for years where students can complete the 150 credit hours and get a master's degree in accounting. So it's interesting to watch that trend, that it's continuing and growing. Okay, so that's a lot about what our 2021 grads were up to or what they're doing these days. So I'll shift and talk a little bit about internships. And we have a lot of excellent internship opportunities for our students. The market is really very strong. Everyone is looking for help. We're seeing a mix of both in-person, hybrid, and some fully remote internship opportunities. It's safe to say it's really an evolving situation that everyone is watching. So we're watching it, recruiters, national organizations, everyone's talking about it, and we're speculating how things are going to go and whether employers are going to be able to fill all the gaps and openings that they have. They're taking some interesting turns. They're offering some new opportunities for internships, such as short-term internships to fill some gaps. There are more micro internship opportunities. Micro internships are project-based gigs. They may last like 5 weeks or something. So we're seeing a lot more of those. So really there's a lot going on out there, and there's a lot of opportunity. We also recognize that there is the trend for recruiting that is virtual. That was already starting before the pandemic. More and more we were seeing virtual interviewing happening and things like that. So the pandemic really sort of sealed the deal in a lot of ways. We're seeing that career fairs are more likely to be virtual, especially the large ones. We're also seeing a trend towards some smaller career fairs that are a little more boutique-y, but the remote large career fairs are probably here to stay. It's something that both employers and our students seem to like just fine. So employers find some efficiency in that, certainly. They don't have to travel as much. The interviews, same thing. Many of them are held virtually. Now, I say that as our interview suite is full of folks right now who are conducting interviews, folks from Citibank. So we really are seeing a mix. And as I say, it's an evolving situation, really fun to watch. Our students, after a year of remote learning, and we have students, as you know, who are here today, and they might mention more about this, but after a year of remote learning, they are much more proficient with engaging with not only classes, but with employers and others through technology mediated opportunities. So They're much more adept at engaging in an interview with Zoom, for example, with their employers. And they seem to be much more comfortable in that environment than they may have been before the pandemic. At the same time, we are a little concerned that they may not be taking the interview quite as seriously because it is remote and it's an opportunity to say, be in jeans, like I am right now, while you're also in a jacket or something in your interview. So we want to make sure that they are still just as polished as they were when they were in person. So we are offering some special programming to help them polish those skills. And there are a few classes that my office oversees in the business communication program that we're able to bring some of these new experiences into the curriculum and help them be better prepared. I'd like to offer something else here that is about the career development space, just to give folks sort of a sense of what we're seeing in the big picture and what people are talking about nationally. So like many career centers around the country, the Office of Career Success is experiencing lower engagement. Now, I say that while our students are seeking more one-to-one coaching and advising appointments, they're not participating in as many of the workshops and special programming that we have to offer. That includes programming that we put on, as well as what some of our employer partners put on. So again, this dip in engagement is a well-known trend we're all watching. So again, NACE, which publishes numerous articles and reports, it has had a lot of talk about engagement and the success of career and professional development education these days. We all are recognizing that students can feel pretty overwhelmed and anxious because of the pandemic. They've struggled academically, socially, and financially in some cases as a result of the pandemic. So we expect that some of these struggles are contributing to the lower engagement. And I wanted just to point to something from a recent article on NACE by Dr. Julia Overton Healy. And she's saying that these problems, like the ones I just mentioned, she's talking about cautioning those of us in career development to be prepared for a different kind of need from our students, such as the increase in one-to-one appointments and lower engagement in the events and programming that we offer. So our job as career educators is to meet our students where they are. So we are watching the trends and responding to them as quickly and flexibly as we can. So we are, for example, building more and more career and professional development programming into the curriculum of classes we oversee in this office. So students don't have to add optional programming to their already full plates. We want to make it easier for them to get that information. We're bringing in a flexible life design curriculum that helps students think about majors and careers that will bring them satisfaction. We give them tools through our classes to do career and industry research and make choices that they're comfortable with. And we are standing nearby if they want to change their minds and try a different path. This all means that career development is evolving too. So we are flexing and growing with the times. It's a fascinating moment. It really is. We have students who are knocking it out of the park. You'll hear from some of them shortly. And then we have those who need a little more time to think things through, but we really are prepared to work with all of them and are honored to have the opportunity to do so. That's really the main thing I have to say today, Anne, unless there's something else you'd like me to address.
Holly, thank you so much. I think this is all very positive as far as both our class of 2021, but the current class and our undergraduate and graduate students on internships. And as you said, I think we're seeing some changes with regard to how recruiting is being done. I've talked to some of your recruiters, the virtual interviews, then they want to come on campus. So kind of the hybrid approach to recruiting. And then the real diversity of the kinds of job experiences students can get even before they've graduated, right? As you said, the short term, the micro experiences. Holly, one question that I've received from a few parents and parents of prospective students coming to Eisenberg, they're asking, are the internships opportunities getting earlier and earlier. Historically or traditionally, we would see everybody get their internship in their junior summer and, you know, whatever. Are we seeing more and more sophomores getting internships? And so where is this changing too?
I think this is part of the whole diversity and change in the way internships are being offered. So there are externships, micro internships, like I said, the shorter term ones. Indeed, there are more opportunities for younger students. That's the bottom line, because there are so many gaps that people are trying to fill, and these are creative ways they're doing that. And they are interested in some of our younger students for sure.
That's great. And as to for those on the webinar, as Holly pointed out, her work and the work of her team to integrate career development into the curriculum, because the students, we appreciate with their coursework and their other activities like the consulting organization, which is great to add to your resume. If we can integrate these things, then it makes it available to all of them in a really easy way. So it's not extra work, which is nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really sort of a no-brainer, because one of the classes we teach is career and professional development for sophomores. So that's an easy way to bring it in. And then our first year transitions class, we're teaching LinkedIn and resumes right off the bat, so that students have some of those materials starting in the first year. So we really are able to weave things in and flex with the changes of the time.
That's good. Well, thank you, Holly. This is really, really wonderful. It's very promising and certainly very exciting for the office and exciting for the students. So we want them to be placed and placed well in good careers. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm now going to turn to Susan Boyer. Susan's here. She is going to give us an update with regard to some of the great things happening in and around our teaching and learning spaces. So Susan, we'll get you to give us an update there.
Excellent. Thank you, Anne. I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a lot of fun things I think I'm going to be sharing with you today. Oops, actually, didn't want to share it that way. I'm going to share it a different way. Okay, lost my share my screen. I am going to start with a little PowerPoint presentation. It should go on. Okay, there we go. So I wanted to start sort of where we were in 2020 when we all got sent home to present our classes via Zoom. We, in terms of technology, we got really good at Zoom. We learned how to poll our students. We learned how to present automatic transcripts so people could read as we were talking to them. We learned how to ask students to raise their hands with reactions. And I think we did a pretty good job with the technology that we had. But there was a limitation to the technology in terms of what Zoom offered us. So we could poll students, but the polling was multiple choice. So if I was polling my students to say, how are you feeling today? Basically, I could say, are you feeling great? Are you feeling fine? Are you feeling so-so? Are you struggling? You know, I had to put them into categories, which wasn't a terrific experience for the students. That was a big challenge that we had. We did learn a lot about creating videos while we were away. We created videos that we love to refer to as Eisenberg digital assets. And we created these very short videos so that we could engage our students online, and we did a good job with that. There were lots of challenges and potential possibilities with what we were doing when we were all remote. But what we found as some of the biggest challenges was that the students really were experiencing that Zoom fatigue that we've heard so much about. And interesting that Holly is talking a lot about engaging students, because that was the biggest challenge that we also faced as instructors. How, when you've got students on Zoom who can turn their cameras off, and sometimes you were feeling like if you watched that Ferris Bueller's Day Off movie, and we had that economics professor was trying to get students to give the answer to some question, and he would say, sort of asking this question and say, anybody, 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 and like nobody would say anything. So when we came back to school, we polled our students. We're a data-driven school, and we were interested in finding out how they were feeling about coming back and the course delivery preference that they had. So course delivery being I loved being online, couldn't imagine anything better than taking class in my pajamas in my bed? Or were you somebody who really wanted a relationship with the professor, loved to see the other students in the class, you really wanted just to be in person? Or were you somebody who wanted a blend of the two? And what we found was the majority of students coming back saw that there was value in a lot of online content that we had created and were presenting to them. And the blended option actually won out in our poll. So fast forward to now, when we were away from school, our technology support and services people were working really hard to get our classrooms ready for when we came back. When we came back, we weren't sure if we were going to come back fully and stay at school, or whether it was going to be like we come back for a few months, things got worse, and then we were back to Zoom. What they did while we were gone was they made every single classroom in Eisenberg Zoom ready and recording ready. What that meant was they gave us cameras, they gave us microphones, they gave us the ability to just to automatically record our sessions. And this gave us a lot of flexibility so that if a student was not feeling well, or if a student thought they got exposed to COVID and didn't want to come into the classroom, we could easily record our session. If a professor had to be out of the classroom for a while, they could Zoom into the classroom and present their materials for students who were sitting in our classrooms. That was an amazing lift for us. That was above and beyond what the rest of the campus was able to do. So we were really fortunate to be here in Eisenberg. And with this blended idea that the students liked, we really started focusing on what we call the flipped classroom. So what the flipped classroom allows us to do is present information to a student to learn outside of the classroom before they come to class. It puts the onus of learning on the student. So I'm going to give you a video to watch. I'm going to give you a case to read. And the expectation is when you get to class, we're going to have active learning. So no more professors standing in front of the class for an hour and 10 minutes, yapping away and just filling you with facts and trying to make it engaging. We're now going to have active learning where you're going to participate in the learning. And what our research shows is that the attention span of most people, not just 18 to 24-year-olds, but everyone, is about 10 minutes. We have about 10 minutes to capture your attention, where your attention is high, you're engaged, you're listening. And then that attention starts falling off at about the 10-minute mark. If we change up the methodology of what we're presenting to you and use different types of technologies, we can bring that attention back up. So maybe I lecture for 10 minutes, then I have some class participation activity, then maybe I go back to lecturing, or maybe I present a poll to the students. Breakout discussions are another way we can do active learning, where we can put people into teams and present some problems for them to discuss, or even show a video in class. So we spent a lot of time telling professors about this active learning model that is pedagogically relevant and robust, and that we were trying to present into our classrooms. And how did we do this? We did this because Ann Massey is brilliant, and she created the Eisenberg Fellows, which is basically a group of 5 teachers who want to teach other teachers, find best practices, find new technologies. We have a session about once a month where we present something to other faculty. We get together and just talk about our struggles, our successes, and give each other moral boosts, and also give examples of what's working in our classes, what's not working in our classrooms. The idea is continuous improvement of the teaching of Eisenberg classes. So what are we doing, which is in the technology realm for student engagement, which is the thing that we found the most challenging, even after students came back. As Holly said, students are stressed. They're not used to being in the classroom. They're used to being at home and digesting the content in different ways. And so we have come up with a lot of different types of tools that we're using based on not just like, we just think this is fun and cool and we're going to entertain our students, but you start with a learning objective and you figure out how to create how to use some technologies, meeting the students where they are. I think it's so funny that Holly and I kind of had the same ideas of student engagement is top of mind, meeting the students where they are right now in terms of their learning and their needs. So let me show you a few of my favorites. So first off, we have Instagram. We have Professor Nora Junaid, who has created an Instagram account. And let me go over here. She calls it her Excel.ninja, and she has 73 tiny little posts of things. She teaches our operations and information management 300 level class. And so part of that class is teaching Excel. So she created this site, which has a bunch of tips and tricks in Excel. She has over 2,400 followers to this Instagram. So obviously students who are taking her class and have left this class come back to this, remembering maybe a trick or a tip or a shortcut that they learned, and they want to use this again. So I'm going to show you just 2 of these tips and tricks. So here's one that's just repeating your last action. So a student would go in here, how do I in Excel repeat my last action? You come up to this and it says, time flies, so should you when you're using Excel. And we're going to give you some quick keys to repeat the last action in Excel. So you can see how fun that is. Another one that I really like a lot is if you're trying to paste some information, you've got formulas and you're trying to paste the data and make it data, you use the shortcut Control-Alt-VV.
If you're feeling like you need a little bit of company, you met me at the perfect time. You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating. The Milky Way, we're renegading. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So you can see how engaging that is in terms of we are definitely meeting the students where they are. Students aren't on Facebook anymore. Students are on Instagram and on Snap. So why not put this information in, make it super engaging, make it something where the TAs that you know that you're seeing every week in your class have created these fun videos for you. So next up is this icon here. That is a symbol of Jamboard. So Jamboard is a Google tool that allows students to engage in ways that are beyond the multiple choice. I'm going to give you 4 answers. You're going to pick the best one, or I'm going to give you this sort of fill in the blank. What we found is surveying students is really death because students just don't like to fill out surveys. So I use Jamboard in my class. And what I did for this last class, we're about halfway through the semester, and I wanted to do a check-in with my students. Of the chapters that we've already gone through, is there anything that you want me to review or you want to do a deeper dive in? So I presented this Jamboard during class and gave them a few little instructions. And then basically there are different pages on the Jamboard. And so here's the Jamboard for Chapter 9. Chapter 9 was all about accounting functions. So do you want to learn more Excel functions that have to do with depreciation and net present value? And you can see people can post either like sticky notes, or they can go and get a fun little meme, which is kind of, this says, when my Excel formula in Excel doesn't work, this is how I feel. So this person wanted to have more information about the trace formula function. So this is a way that you can engage the students in a way that's different from just your normal like Zoom boring polling. Other professors, Carrie Baldwin, have used it for data mining. So she starts with a Jamboard that looks like this, and she posts these sticky notes, puts her students into teams, and asks them to categorize some of these different concepts that she's using for her class. Very much an engaging way of helping students engage in class. All right, so number 3 is something I'm really, really excited to show you. Matt Glennon, who teaches the 300 level marketing, uses a product called Pickles. So in marketing, you want your students to be creative. Pickles allows you to post a question, and then the students basically draw a picture on their phone using the Pickles app. And then what Matt does is puts a combination of these drawings together and then creates a video. So in the middle of our respite, when we were all teaching offline, he posed a question to his students about COVID and how they were feeling about all of this. Now, he has recently gotten 4,000 new drawings that he's putting together a new video about. But I thought I would show you the video. This is just a quick 2-minute video about how our students were feeling about COVID in a way that they could articulate through drawings. So think of how empowering that is to a student who is, having all these feelings of stress about COVID, and they get to express it and then have somebody put it into a video. So Pickles also is a company created by a UMass alum, which makes it very exciting for us to use their software that is actually used in a lot of companies for engagement of staff and employees when people are doing some conferencing and so on. So not only is it a product in the classroom, but it's being used as well in industry.
So Susan, I don't mean to interrupt you here. We're going to want to bring this. You've got a slew of different technologies and ways to engage students, and we'll probably have to get you to come back and give us an update with all the other things. But I will say, with regard to Pickles and Matt's class, that is the 301 class, which seats about 400 students. So to Susan's point about how do you engage students, and back to Holly's observation of meeting students where they are, and as Susan's described, using the technologies that the students use on a day-to-day basis and leveraging them so that we can engage with them to advance their learning in the classroom and beyond. So it's very creative, it's very clever. And as Susan just said, in many cases, it prepares them for the kinds of tools and technologies that they are going to be using out in their internships and their jobs. So the whole thing actually comes together. And so we're really very happy with the work that Susan has done and the work that she's leading, and our teaching fellows that she mentioned. They're just phenomenal, and all of our other faculty who have stepped up, and the supporting staff. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
All right. Without further ado, of course, this is partially why we're here, actually why we are really here, as I'm going to introduce our students that are joining us today from the consulting group, Kat Simmons, Devin Roshanish, and Andrew Zhu. Some of you I believe, might remember Devin. Devin joined us last spring. We brought him in. He is a career peer working with Holly's group and Office of Career Success. So you may remember Devin, and I'd like to get them on board here so that they can tell us a little bit about the consulting group and some of the exciting things and really how the group works. It is very similar to some of our other clubs, for example, the clubs in the finance area that do work in investments and managing funds. So very similarly structured with senior consultants, junior consultants, and so on. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our students from our consulting group.
Yeah, thank you, Dean Massey, for having us. We're certainly excited to talk a little bit about our programming. And as she said, just to reinforce her point, we're one of very many really, really competitive Eisenberg clubs. So certainly what we do, we think we do quite well, but there are plenty of others for whatever sort of academic and professional interests your, son or daughter might have. Nonetheless, I'd love to, of course, pass it off to Andrew and Kat in just a minute, but I'll lay out the overall structure of our current programming across 3 main dimensions before I do that. The first is our junior analyst development program. I think we can all concur that educating our sort of younger members is an admirable goal, and just as Eisenberg does for us, we do it for our junior analysts. And what we kind of do is structure that development across 3 main dimensions: analytical development, technical development, and professional development. So we make sure that every single member who joins our club is proficient in PowerPoint, Excel, and the Microsoft Office suite, in addition to being able to thoroughly dissect a case study, read through financial statements, understand basic micro and macroeconomics, and be fluent across the dimensions of finance and strategy. All that feeds into what is really our group's core competency, which is our project work. We're super, super thrilled to do client engagements with clients that really range from notable startups all the way to the Fortune 500, with our client sponsors actually tending to range from the VP level to the C-suite, especially recently. More to come on that in a second. And we engage them across really any dimension of strategy, whether it's, hey, our costs are too high, how might we cut them? Or we want to make more money, how might we go about that? To even, one of our big bank clients in the past semester engage us on how might we enter the Southeast Asian market, so very, very broad strokes, high level questions that have lots of buy-in at the executive level. But I think even better than me talking about this would be Andrew, who's our project director this semester, who I'll pass it off to for this next segment.
Hey, Devin, thank you for passing it off to me. And as Devin mentioned, I'll give you guys a briefing over what do our projects look like this semester, because I think talking about what we're doing currently will give you guys a good idea of what does, having maybe your son or daughter work with us look like in the long run, because so much of our work is revolving around our projects. And we have 2 really interesting projects this semester. The first one is a product entry or product launch, rather, with a biotechnology company. And we do sign NDAs with all of our clients, so we have to anonymize these. But this biotechnology company is a major startup in the Boston area. And essentially what they do is they make an instrument that is critical in the evaluation and production of small biological molecules. So this plays an integral role in, say, the production of mRNA vaccines, for example. So being able to be so close to this very impressive and very technical information that is leading advancement from a scientific perspective has been really interesting to then get into the business of it. So how do we actually launch this new product that will likely cannibalize our clients' old projects in a way that is maximizing their success in the long run, given that they're a startup? So very, very compelling work that we're doing there. And I think that emphasizes what Devin was saying earlier, in that nowadays we work very much with very pressing issues, and that dictates that we work with people in these companies that are commiserate with that. So our client contact for that project is actually the CEO of this startup, and it's a large startup with over 60 million in funding. So that has been a really exciting development. And from there, I'll talk quickly about what our other project is, which is what's known as a roll-up integration. So essentially, we're working with a $20 million manufacturing company that is comprised of 5 different companies that have been bought together and are being merged together. And we're working directly with both the CEO and CFO to figure out how can we grow this and create a process to continuously buy companies and merge them together in a profitable manner so that they can hit their 40 million revenue growth targets and then exit the business and sell off the business. So very complex work that intersects with valuations and it intersects with private equity as they look to sell the business and down the line. But how can they right now make a scalable revenue model? So with that, I want to hand it back with Devin, but I think that I'd love to emphasize that the work we do is very real and it's comparable to what real consultancies are doing.
Yeah, we're certainly quite passionate about it. And I think it's great to be able to pass on to our members the experience of really undergoing, super legitimate work, as Andrew was alluding to. And of course, this is all to support them in whatever their professional goals are, whether it's strategy consulting, high finance, or anything in between. Before I pass it on to I segue into our upcoming / new programs, I want to quickly touch upon what we sort of do on a more weekly cadence, which is just our, of course, general body developmental workshops. Much like our JDP, we want to stress holistic and continuous learning across all of our members. And so to really enforce that truly generalist skill set, we once again, work on our analytical skills, we build up technical proficiency, and of course, we all support each other to make sure we achieve professional outcomes that are, as good as they can possibly be. That was sort of, much ado about that. But I also have a few upcoming initiatives that I'm super enthusiastic about that I think, in part will, of course, reinforce our own curriculum and I think help us in giving back to our, general Eisenberg and UMass community, which is, of course, one of our goals the entire time and all the way through. The one that I'll discuss before passing on to Kat actually is our upcoming Consulting Academy. Sort of details are still in flux, and Holly and I have been working together on this initiative thus far. But we're creating this academy to, in short, assist Eisenberg students in placing into top consulting positions, which are, of course, both very lucrative and very intellectually stimulating careers. This is predicated on comparable programs at other, business schools, one of which Dean Massey, I'm sure, is very aware of at IU Kelly. They have quite a great consulting academy, and so we took a lot of inspiration from that program. Nonetheless, the details are as follows. It's essentially a 4-week program for freshmen and sophomores who are interested in placing into consulting, where they'll be supported directly from senior leadership in IUCG as they decide, hey, where might I want to land within this very, very broad landscape of consulting, which in and of itself is almost a buzzword, as I'm sure you guys, might sort of think. Nonetheless, we'll be, hosting guest speakers, we'll be conducting workshops, and we'll be making sure that they receive all the support that they need in order to achieve their professional outcomes and hopefully further the sort of word of consulting on campus, which I think is not necessarily a profession that has the brand equity yet of finance, but is certainly continuing to grow. Anyhow, that's all from me. I'll pass it off to Kat to discuss our upcoming Eisenberg case competition.
Thanks, Devin. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Simons. I am the current Professional Development Director for IUCG, and we are really excited to be hosting our first annual Eisenberg Strategy Case Competition this spring. In tandem with the Eisenberg School of Management, the case competition itself will be taking place on April 23rd, 2022. This will be a virtual event, which we're really excited about to bring in more than just students from surrounding states, but also students from across the country. We have over 10 teams already registered and a host of professional judges that will be lined up to assess their performance. And another great thing about this competition is that prizes will be awarded to the top 3 teams from a cash pool of over $3,000. We encourage any students from UMass and beyond who are interested to register for the event before the deadline on March 13th. And this year's competition will be the beginning of a great tradition here at Eisenberg. We're really excited to bring more awareness to the field of strategy consulting and the types of projects that consulting professionals will be working on in the real world. And we also want to mention how thankful we are to Eisenberg for supporting us in the planning and execution of this event, because it really couldn't happen without their support. So with that, I'll pass it back to Andrew to talk a little bit more about one of our other initiatives this semester.
Thanks, Kat. So the final initiative we want to talk about is called the IUCG Ring Fence, which I know might be this kind of vague term that is kind of confusing, but to give a little bit of context behind that, I think a lot of people think they need to choose between, say, careers in investing or finance and consulting. And I think that's a little bit of a misconception, because when I'm thinking about consultancies, there are plenty that do a specific type of project that is known as a commercial due diligence, which is essentially conducting an investment analysis of the underlying business and saying, this is where the business is now, and where do we think this business is going to be in 5 years? And this is a very common type of project that's taken on by some of the top consultancies, whether it's Bain, BCG, EY Parthenon, or LEK, for example. And in efforts to make this more apparent that this is a real part of consulting, that you can build up not only your strategic and operational skill set, but also really understand the mindset of an investor, we've decided to start the IUCG Ring Fence, which emulates these projects known as commercial due diligences within the Eisenberg Undergraduate Consulting Group. So what does this actually look like? Well, in short, you'll be understanding markets, conducting analysis of company-specific positions, and then, as I said, you'll take a stance on what that company might look like in 5 years. So for example, we'll be doing a due diligence into the global copper supplier market this semester within IUCG for the inaugural semester with the Ring Fence. And how do we actually legitimize this experience? Well, the first starting will be coming with investment pitches. This is ideas you might have about where can you find value that is accessible in terms of research for IUCG. And then from there, we'll talk about what are we excited about? What do we want to spend the semester researching? And then we'll create reports throughout the semester on what is this market? What is the specific what are the specific companies within this market? And where do we think we can find value? And to culminate all of this and really top it off, we've been able to garner $30,000 in capital from an IUCG alumni that we can actually throw in at the end to say, hey, we believe in our work so much that we're going to allow our members to say, not only did we make these diligence reports, we actually had money behind it. So you might say this is very similar to like what the funds do, but this is really to highlight that consulting gives you a very broad range of experiences. Whether you want to do 6 months understanding how investors think, or you want to understand how CEOs think, there are a lot of opportunities to do so. And our goal with the IUCG Ring Fence was to bring that to IUCG. So you can become a well-rounded business person. And before you graduate, not only have you been advising a CEO on their biggest strategic and operational concerns, but you've also understood specific markets, and you've been able to do a rotation in producing market reports and specific company analyses and valuations. So you really can know, like, what do I want to do? What is this work like? And be a very well-rounded business person from both a problem solving and analytical standpoint. And with that, that is kind of the overall summary of what the IUCG Ring Fence is, which really is a big initiative this semester on making sure IUCG can provide a large suite of resources to its members.
Wow. As always, you guys blow me away. And I think this is just phenomenal. And I've said this many times, the consulting group here and the students that joined us over lunch day are just some examples of the many, many other clubs and organizations within Eisenberg that are doing such good work. And, we try to provide to students both a top-notch curriculum, their classroom experiences. We've heard some of the things from Susan Boyer earlier, but then these other opportunities, the co-curricular opportunities, these kinds of experiences that the students really drive, as we just heard, those experiences develop the competencies and the confidence that you just saw, that we just heard from these students today, the confidence to do these projects while they are students, and then ultimately the confidence that they're going to carry forward into their internships and their job opportunities going forward. And we're so proud of them. And they mentioned the academy. We're working in, we'll also know, not just a consulting academy, but also an insurance academy. The notion of an academy is that they are industry facing, that they provide a platform to develop the skills and competencies for students that are interested in particular industries, but also provide a place for companies to come and join and work with us for job opportunities, workshops, and so on. So we're very excited about a couple of the academies that we're trying to get off and running, and I want to thank Holly for her efforts. and the departments that will be associated. I'll just answer a couple of quick questions here that we got during the session. One of our attendees today asked how we support the various clubs and organizations. We do a variety of things. We have faculty who serve as advisors and mentors to the students. We have departments that step up and provide some resources for students. As I believe Devin mentioned, we have our events people. Shannon Petrin, one of our lead event planners, is helping the consulting club with their case competition. So we try to provide a lot of staff and faculty resources to these student organizations. And we also, through our donors and alumni, those of you who have given into the Dean's Excellence Fund as but one example, we then distribute as needed monies to the students for the various activities that they're engaged in to help seed activities as they're trying to grow some of their initiatives, such as the case competition we just heard a description of. Another question that we received during the session was, do we do any merit-based scholarships? Eisenberg provides both merit and need-based scholarships, and we've grown our scholarships. That's in addition to what happens through the university. We've grown the distribution of scholarships over the last 2 years by $750,000, again, through the help of our alumni and our donors and friends. So we want to thank everyone for that. It does create opportunities for students to do some things that they would not otherwise be able to do. I'm just in the spirit of time, I'm just going to take one question or try to address one question because I think it ties everything together. Question that we got in advance of the session was, what metrics do we use to measure Eisenberg's progress relative to other competitive business programs? And I will just say that we use a number of metrics. One of the things that everyone sees and that is in the public sphere is obviously our rankings at our undergraduate and graduate level. We have moved up in the last few years. We are among the very best business schools at the undergraduate level, 30th nationally in US News and World Report among all the public schools. But we also do track some other things in addition to those rankings. We do look at how we fare via other schools, for example, on donor and alumni giving. And we've asked our friends and alumni to help increase giving because that is a metric that we do compare. We look at the research productivity of our faculty, and we have some of the best faculty in the country and the world with national and international reputations. We look at our community engagement. And when I say community, I mean local community, state, national, and beyond. So both, and you've heard from one of our student groups, the engagement and the involvement that they have, and we have many other student organizations. We heard from our Global Citizens Club last year and the work that they do with some local outreach and engagement. We also track, compared to other business schools, how we do on placement, and you heard that from Holly, and we are doing really well on that with over 90%, almost 95% placement of our students within 6 months. And then, of course, we look at some things that are more local in terms of how are we doing with retention. And Eisenberg has very high retention rates among our students. We also look at the diversity of our students, a percentage of URM and first generation students. So there's all sorts of metrics that we use and that we track. And as we're working on our next 5-year plan, we're looking at all these sorts of metrics that tell us how we're doing. And I can give you the state of our union today that I think we're doing very well. So in the spirit of time, and we promised everybody about an hour, I just want to say thanks to everybody that joined us today, the support that everyone provides. For parents that are on this session, I hope that what you've heard is very promising and very encouraging with regard to how we're trying to transform your student and making them the best possible graduate that we can. And again, I want to thank all of our faculty and staff who make these sessions possible. And of course, our students, again, I'm so proud of you and love working with you. And we just wait to see all the success that they have while they're with us and the success that's coming as they leave our doors. So anyway, everyone have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon and weekend. And we can't wait to keep things going and have a very, very good spring break to our students. And we hope to see you again very soon on another lunchtime chat. Thanks, everybody.